Okay, welcome back, everyone. This is the next episode of the Rally Podcast. I'm Mike White here with Shaun Boyer and Logan Cornelius. Dropped Anthony Wrench from this one. He couldn't hang, / he is on vacation. So we have a lot to talk about this time because the Chicago Grand Slam just happened this past weekend. One of the largest tournaments we've ever had. Some crazy results, 138 teams, I believe. To recap that, the winner was Chiswick Showalter, who has won almost every event they've played in this season, and they won in a dominant fashion, taking out Golden Set and Two Guys and Sleeper Pick in their quarterfinals, semis, and finals. Golden Set took second, which is a little unexpected, defeated number 2 Origin Impact and number 5 Anchored Long Island. Two Guys had a standard day for them, defeated Point Loma Spike, and then dropped to Chiswick Showalter in the semis to take third. And then Origin Impact, who has done well this year, fell to Golden Set, which was, again, unexpected, and then ended up in fourth. Tons of other stuff, but that's the basic top 4 recap. And a lot of stuff to talk about after the tournament. There were some big discussions on Facebook, so we're going to get into some of that stuff. But to start, I actually wanted to talk about the overall structure of the tournament because in the 47-team advanced division, I think, there were 22 premier teams, which is probably the most premier teams we've ever had at a tournament. And it's more premier teams that we've had at our premier division tournaments like Summer Spike. So what I was thinking is, with that, of course, the regionals and nationals, we were having premier divisions, but how does this play for next year when we want to have premier divisions at certain tournaments? Is 22 enough to warrant its own division automatically? Shaun, what do you think?
I think so. Once we're starting to get to a point where there's a lot more premier teams than when we started the season, I think going into 2018, premier should be a standard at most tournaments, just to keep creating that divide and making sure teams are playing other teams that are around their same level. But I could be wrong, and we may not be there yet going into next season, but I think we're getting pretty close to that place.
Mm-hmm. Do you think there's a certain number we should have? Because I think there were a couple tournaments where they maybe had 7 premier teams. I think the lowest we had was maybe Montreal, which was, of course, a bonus tour stop, kind of an anomaly there, with just 4. And then after that had 7. So do you think there's a certain minimum we should wait for?
In an ideal world, we'd do a 16 or even a 32 if we can get up there. But if we have 16s, then you can make a nice, pretty bracket out of that. And it sounds like we're starting to get to that point. It's a good, even number to shoot for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one thing you have to keep in mind at the Chicago Grand Slam too is that it's one of the most popular tournaments of the year. And at this point in the season, this is the most premier players we've had throughout the whole year. There's way more premier players now than there was back in February when the tour series started. And going forth, we're going to start out with more premier players next year than we started out this year. So it does set up for a more promising premier division at each event. But also, I think there was a little more incentive to fill out premier divisions at each one because there are less. Mm-hmm. Become the standard, it's less, not necessarily less special, but they're just not as there's more than one per series, so it'll be harder to fill it out as robustly as we did this year. I'd love to be wrong in that, but that's kind of one way I see it.
Yeah, when we started this year, we just had last year's premiere, and then a ton of new players qualified this year, and then at the end of next year, we should probably kind of level out, I think, as people need to re-qualify. You're not just premier for life. I think only a few players have not re-qualified from last year, so I think we should see a steady trend. And after next year, we'll know how many we have constantly. And that's the thing is, the Premier Division at a certain point shouldn't grow because there's only a certain amount of places where you can qualify and re-qualify. So I think we might want to even readjust and try to hit that sweet spot where we have, maybe 16 or 32 at a certain tournament. I personally think if we just get 8 or 12, we could just make that a premier division. I think if Chicago here, so there's 22 premier teams, and say we said, okay, if there's 12, we'll have a premier division. So all those 22 are in the premier division, and then left there was 25 in advanced. But with 80 and intermediate, I'm sure a good amount would have jumped into the advanced if there was Premier. So I think that'll help level out everything overall. And also with 80 and intermediate, I'm also wondering if, like the opposite of having Premier, if beginner division is warranted at some point, because I think like that intermediate division was good. There were some really solid players there that maybe could have been advanced, and even just the intermediate division, just it was probably the best we've ever had. So I'm thinking, do we need beginners division, because we've only had that at Summer Spike and Nationals.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I think it was a definite hit at Summer Spike. It really allows these new players that may have not been to a tournament before to not come and get stomped the whole day. So I would definitely jump on board for that. I think you do make a good point, Mike, about Premier and just how it'll always stay at this constant level. And maybe we find we want to make it a little easier to become Premier, so we do have a higher team count normally at tournaments, or we maybe go the other way and we want to make it tighter. So I think there's arguments for both sides, but 28. I think we learned a lot this season, and going into 2018, we'll have it figured out.
Yeah, touching on beginner, I had a few friends who wanted to play, but like it's my first tournament. I haven't practiced that much. I'm not going to play an intermediate. But if there's a beginner division, it'd be a lot easier to convince them to play, and I think they would have as well. So at least for bigger tournaments, I think beginner should start being a staple. Tournament like Summer Spike showed it was effective, and Chicago definitely would have been effective.
Mm-hmm. I think we definitely see the divide now, because players in advanced, intermediate isn't just I've played in like 2 tournaments, so I'm okay. Like there are a lot of intermediate players that have played in a lot of tournaments, and advanced players have played in tons. So, and it's also it's not like, okay, I played in 1 tournament, I'll play in beginner. I've played in 2 or 3, I can play intermediate. Okay, now I'm at 6, I can play advanced. There's really not that natural of a progression. So we kind of just need to be open for everything. And we could also have it just always open. Like, hey, here's the beginner division, but no, if there aren't 8 teams, we are going to merge with the intermediate and work around something like that. Contrary to what I said earlier about finding a constant level of teams in Premier, that's not the case, because if teams travel more and the same teams, because you need to make top 8 to requalify, and say Premier teams make top 8 at every event, the only times we will have requalification is, well, we will have qualification in the advanced division, but if those same teams that are in the Premier division aren't qualified, say the same top 8 teams place top 8 at every Premier stop or advanced stop, then there will be tons of teams that don't requalify. So we could reach that point where requalifying is much harder than first getting in, so we could actually have a big dip too. So we'll see what happens.
So is there something set in place this year for requalification in Premier Division?
I believe it was if you play in the Premier Division at a like Summer Spike, then getting top 8 the same, because getting top 8 in the Premier Division is pretty much the same as getting top 8 in the Advanced Division, except there are non-Premier teams in the Advanced Division.
Yeah.
I don't believe it was explicitly said, but I believe that is what I've been told.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we'll see. I'm excited to see how that works, because I'm always for more divisions so that people can play more teams at their level.
I'm excited for the tournaments that where it fits. I can't wait till every tournament where it makes sense to have that, but we'll see how it plays out with a lot of the smaller tournaments. Like, like St. Louis or Gulf Shores this year, I don't think that made sense, but I can't wait till it makes sense at every stop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're hoping. Okay, so moving forward, the finals of the Chicago Grand Slam brought a lot of discussion afterwards on Facebook, because Chiswick Showalter, as they had all day, were serving up a storm. Normally it's just Peter John who grabs the aces, but this time Tyler Chiswick came along. He has a new serve where he just kind of winds up, same as he did, but hits that just front part of the net and sends it almost at a 90-degree angle. So putting those two together, they were demolishing teams. In the finals, they beat Golden State 21-16, 21-13. Golden State kept up with some aces of their own, but for the most part, I think people were counting, and Peter John Showalter had like 7 aces in that game one, which is just absurd. So the discussion afterwards was how it was very boring and how we need to limit this. A lot of people were getting kind of drastic, where we need rule changes to limit this because this is boring. People aren't going to watch this finals, and we need to focus more on rallies. What were your guys' thoughts? Logan, you were there, right?
Yeah. One of the thoughts, I going on to the discussion in the thread, one of the things I said is like, why punish teams for working so hard and figuring this out? I guess for me, like, one of the things is it doesn't necessarily seem like the serves that like it's some physical feat that they've mastered and now they're able to perform in this. They've just figured out the angles, and it's something that I think other people will be able to figure out as well, and they'll build upon, and then everyone will be doing it. So it's not like, one, they're the first to figure it out, so that's a huge step, but it's something that I think people can follow, and then people can start serving like that, and it can take advantage. And it's interesting to note that while I was periscoping, the least amount of viewers was during the finals, and I think that's just because they saw Chiswick Showalter was there, and they didn't believe the hype of the matchup. I think something's got to be done with serving. Personally, some people said they enjoyed it. I prefer rallies more than aces. I like getting aces, but watching it, I want to see rallies, and I think something's got to change with that.
So you said something interesting, Logan, about how I do agree with it, that people will catch up to where they're at as far as getting as many aces and finding that angle and just improving overall. But won't that just get to a place where everyone's acing and it's no longer a game of rallies, it's just a game of serves?
Yeah, and that doesn't sound that fun.
Okay.
Yes.
I think we're on this.
Mm-hmm. What I wanted to say was, like, of course, it was like amazing. Those serves were incredible. Like, and also them against two guys, like Troy had some great serves of his own, and so does Preston. And I appreciate what they can do with those serves, because it is not easy to serve like that. Especially Tyler, he couldn't do that in Boston, so he's done that in 3 weeks. He's developed that serve. And people say, you need to, we can all get better and do these serves, but do we want that? If everyone can do these serves, like, of course, that's awesome. But, like, what is the sport then? Do our top 8s all become just who can ace? And of course, like, they're all great players. Two guys in Chiswick Showalter both played well offensively and defensively, but what changed it was the aces. If everyone is just acing like that, and you have to have a good serving game to win even more extremely than this, then what do we do? Like, at what point does it affect it? Of course, right now, I do not want any serving changes. I think it's totally fine. But I think going forward, if one team can serve like that, cool, like, good job. But if everyone's serving like that, then I think it's ridiculous.
So, Mike, do you not see any concern? And I think, at least I was having these thoughts before, like, this whole serving thing blew up and became an issue, that Spikeball in general is not a fun spectator sport. Do you see any issue with that, Mike? Is, like, the progression of the sport, serving aside, do any rule changes need to happen to make it more exciting for viewers?
I do want it to be more entertaining to watch, and as I said before, it is entertaining to watch when you have a stake in the match. But I think there are teams that play in top 16 and top 8 that are very fun to watch, and they do serve well. And I think a lot of it comes from some teams, just the way they play. Their play styles aren't fun to watch. And that happens in all sports. Some teams are going to be more fun to watch than others. And I do see that the finals of your game is the most visible. So we want that to be looking the best. But it's also our best teams. And if our best teams win by serving like that, then maybe it's not the worst.
Now, one thing I thought was interesting you said is how Tyler couldn't serve like that in Boston, but then he learns this serve in 3 weeks. I mean, if you're able to pick up a serve like that in 3 weeks,
but it's Tyler. It's not everyone. It's Tyler. He's one of the best players. Yeah,
that's true. That's true. He is one of the best players, but it's still like 3 weeks. Okay, like say someone for 6 weeks, you can pick up that serve in 6 weeks or 2 months. That's pretty quick to pick up a new serve that's that effective. And yeah, I'll give him that he's one of the best players, so he understands the game more and understands serving more than others. but that's still pretty quick to transform
But
your serve.
I
like
also
that.
think he's been trying to do that serve all year. He has been doing that just with less angle all year. And he just recently has done that. So I guess we'll see. What the biggest thing I think now is with all these rules is, of course, we can't change anything right now. And do you think in 2 months, people will be able to adapt at all to these serves? Because players were pretty close. They were within a hand's length, and this was on sand. But there are games where Peter John just takes over and you can't do anything, and we've seen that for 2 years. But do you think in the next 2 months by nationals people will adapt? Because last year when in St. Louis tour stop, when Matt Bonin did his like wide stance step like this, everyone was freaking out about how that's going to be really good. And in Boston it still was really good, and then it's not a problem anymore. People did adapt.
I mean, there's a ton of people on Facebook that have been like sharing the sentiment of just get better. And I think we can all agree that as athletes, sure, that is an answer. Just get better, and eventually the defense will catch up to these serving angles. But for me, like to my core, I think we need to find an answer to make the sport more fun to watch in general, which is what I'll keep going back to. So I do think like come nationals, I don't think serving is going to be as big an X factor as it's played, say, in Chicago. I think it'll play a role, but I don't think it'll decide a match. Because it's become such a big deal that people got to start practicing, lining up and making a dive and getting a good get on a serve. But I'm just thinking more the longevity of the sport, how we can make it more fun. And I don't think changing serving is the number one answer, but I think it's a part of it.
I think there's going to be a lot more aces generated. I think it may be less of a factor because there'll be a lot more aces generated at nationals. Because I think more people are going to like improve in serving as nationals comes around. Ultimately, I think I'm a big proponent of the ball changing in order to make the sport more fun. I think that can make a huge difference.
Like getting bigger, or how so?
I don't necessarily know. Different material make the ball move slower. Right now, one thing that did change from the old ball to the pro ball is it became lighter, easier to control. But I think just heavier material. I haven't played with it bigger, so I don't really feel comfortable saying making it bigger. I need to test it out before I say that. But I have played with some different materials before on the balls, and I could feel a difference. I could feel a difference in the gameplay, and I think that would help.
Shaun, going back to what you said about you're not seeing you'll see ace to be less of a factor, and you mentioned diving. I don't see too many people diving for serve returns. When I remember last year, Skylar was diving all over to get some of Peter John's serves, and I think that actually would help a lot of people. Of course, like a bad touch on a dive is better than no touch at all. Not that that's an answer, but it is something I didn't notice. I noticed a lot of people don't just race off and dive.
Yeah, I think that it's getting to a point where they need to happen. And I mean, it's such a head game of, all right, I'm going to stand 3 feet to my right or left to get in the server's head, make them rethink what they're going to do. If people want a pro tip, here's one. Just it's all about getting in the server's head. So maybe like doing a couple like fake steps forward, fake steps back, jumping around. You can't let them get in the zone. And I think on the returner side of things, they need to start really considering how they're going to affect these rhythms that servers are getting into.
Maybe some strategic timeouts too.
Yeah, totally.
So talking about it being a spectator sport and how I just got a Facebook notification. Nice. Just the sound went off in my headphones, so that'll be in the podcast. Thanks for everyone.
Congrats, Mike.
Yeah,
that's
I'm,
huge.
I'm pretty popular. So I was thinking about how the serving and people talk about not wanting to punish these players for learning these serves and for being great. But what I brought up before when we were talking before this podcast is, do we want serving to determine the winners? Like, is that what's important to us? And if we have to change the rules to change what we value, like the players' skills should not, like, what determines what the sport is? Do we determine what the sport we want to be, or do the players determine what it is? Like, if everyone gets good at serving and that's how you win, is the sport a serving sport? Or do we have the right to say, no, we don't want the sport to be like that, and we are going to make these rules to keep the spirit of what we want the sport to be about?
I think one of the things I see is there's this pendulum right now with the sport is it's either weighted on the serving or it's weighted on the easy 1-2-3 return, and we got to find the middle ground. Personally, I want it to be a rally sport, not a serving sport, but it is a serving sport. And when we see those rallies, they're incredibly enjoyable to watch. But if we do something that affects the serving, then it's easy to get that 1-2-3 kill. Then if we do something like, okay, let's give power to the serving to prevent the 1-2-3 kill, serving has the power again. So we've swung back and forth between there, and it's where's that balance? And I think somewhere in the middle there, it's fun.
I got the answer, Logan.
Okay.
I think we need to move serving lines back to 7 or 8 feet, and then we need to make an inner circle, like a perimeter that you can't go into to hit, and then we're golden.
Well, what about just what some people propose is, again, limit serving however we can, and then you can only get 2 touches off the return. That's what people have been talking about for a while, because that will, if you have 2 touches, it's okay that serving isn't as good, and then we'll start those rallies. Because people say if you limit serving, it'll just be 1-2-3s. So how about we limit the first possession as well and only go with 2 hits?
I've never been a huge fan of the 2-hit idea. I will say that I haven't tried it, so I could be wrong, but I just think, like, even if we move the serving line back to 8 feet, PJ's a very long person. He'll still get some pretty gnarly serves, and that getting it back on the net in 2 is going to be extremely hard. But like I said, I haven't tried it. I could be wrong.
So what we're going to have to do is have a server's retreat and just find at what distance can they not do everything.
Yeah.
And then play that in. No, I do think that it has to really be a mix of the 2, limit hitting and limit serving, but it's really hard. I guess we'll have a busy off season testing all that stuff.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what we come up with. What can make it better. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I feel like 8 feet's a long ways away. I feel like it's still pretty doable within that 8 feet. But like I said, I haven't tried it either, and it's something I need to try before I can actually have a lot better idea of what the answer is.
Oh, with all this talk, I also want to mention that there were some great matches, and not all of them were like the finals or some of the semifinals. There were some really competitive matches going, and a lot of rallies, a lot of things were fun to watch. So we're still doing good. Just some problems.
Especially in the round of 32, right?
Yeah, Touch of the Sky, Ohio against the World. That was a great match. I did walk up to Jack Scotty, and I go, Touch of the Sky, Ohio against the World, best match I've ever seen. And he goes, really? I go, oh, not really. And he got a little mad because I think earlier someone said something like really hyperbolic like that. Like, wow, that was the best serve I've ever seen. And Jack's like, really? He's like, no, it was just fine. But it was pretty good. Logan was a lefty machine.
Yeah,
but you know why?
All day,
he
every
played
day.
Some lefty-only games on Friday.
You warmed me up, Mike. You warmed me up.
Yeah.
Practice makes perfect.
That? Everyone just has to play with their offhand only.
That'll solve everything.
Yeah. Oh, when's offhand nationals?
2019.
We just locked down the permit.
It's right after college nationals.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing I did want to bring up, though, kind of on the subject, but slight curveball. As far as making games more exciting to watch or more of an emotional investment for spectators, what do you guys think about potentially lowering the length of a game, so maybe to 11 points or even 7, but then extending the series out to best of 5 or best of 7? Because then there's so much more invested in one game as compared to, like, because we'll all admit no one really watches the first 20 points of any Spikeball match. Maybe they'll catch a good rally here and there, but you don't really focus in until it's 18-17 or 19-20, you know?
Funny you asked this because I brought this up to Jack Scotty on Friday before the Grand Slam, and I've talked to Skylar about it before. Skylar, of course, coming from his tennis background, so he kind of looks at tennis scoring a little bit. But I did question why we do 3 games to 15 or 3 games to 21, where sometimes, of course, if you go up early, maybe a 4-point lead, like that can handle the whole game. Not always, you can come back from that. But I was thinking, what if we do best of 5 to 11 or best of 7 to 7? And I think what happens is, it'll also your serve percentage has to be better in some way, because if you're only getting 5 serves, say you get 12 serves a game, hitting 7 instead of hitting or 6 isn't that big a difference. But if you only get 5 serves or something, hitting 3 instead of 2 is a lot different. And, but again, if aces are how you get your breaks, then you're still going to miss your serves. But I really wanted to question that, and I think that games will be more important and they'll feel more stressful when they're shorter like that. I think that's kind of what you're getting at. Like, you don't watch the first half of a game because what really matters is when you get past like 13s. That's when it kind of matters.
Well, because typically you're trading points and then it gets to 13s and then things get exciting. Mm-hmm. But the margin for error is so much higher when you are in a game to 7 or 11.
Right. Well, and also if you mess up, you can just say, all right, well, we're going to lose this one. And it's not as big a deal. You're given both sides. You're given, like, if you have a great game, you're going to win it. But also, if you kind of mess up a couple times, it's not as bad. A game to 21, you mess up like twice in the beginning, and they'll hold that the whole thing. And, of course, winning 2 out of 3 is easier than winning 3 out of 5 when there's mistakes on the line. So I at least want to try it out. I think it'll change the game mentally. Logan, what do you think?
I mean, there's more room for comebacks in the game to 21. You're playing to 11. You get down 2 breaks. Sure, that game it's a lot harder to come back down from 2 breaks. Sure, that game, in essence, is a lot less weighted than losing a game 2 out of 3. It's just the weight from the weights being on the actual points in the game as opposed to the weight being on the game itself. And I don't know, comebacks in games and the ability to, okay, it's 13-10, we're down. We've seen some good comebacks in games of 21. When games are to 11, you take away a lot of comeback potential because the games are just so short, and breaks are even more monumental in games to 11 than they are in games to 21 because there's less room to come back from those.
I think there could still be comebacks, so it'll just be, all right, we're down 2-1 in the series. We need to win twice more.
Exactly. So
it's a difference. Yeah. It's point comebacks, which still can happen because, I mean, well, if you equate it like a 3-break lead, say something's up 8-5 in a game to 11, that's like being up like 6 breaks in a game to 21, and you don't expect someone to come back from 6 breaks.
I wouldn't quite equate it that much.
But like, I don't know.
I see what you're saying.
But like you have just as much time, or like that's how much time you have.
But yeah, I mean, it puts more pressure on the series, and there's more room for series comebacks rather than for like game comebacks. Mm-hmm. Is basically that shifts the weight.
Food for thought. I'm not saying it's the right answer, but it'd be fun to try.
It's definitely been brought up.
Yeah.
All right, random question. Have you guys ever played a pickup game without keeping score? Like, once we played for like 30 minutes and just didn't keep score at all. And then I was like, all right, so next point wins. And it was really weird, but it was kind of nice because we were just playing. Like, there wasn't much to it, and it was actually felt better mentally.
That's kind of beautiful.
So I take you've never done that.
I don't think I have. If we're not keeping score, we're just kind of messing around. And once we start keeping score, that's when we lock in and we're playing a lot harder. Otherwise, if we're not keeping score, we're just trying trick shots, like setting it crazy and trying to hit with our feet. So we got to keep score to stay in it.
Yeah, I'm the same way.
It was just so weird because, I think it was 2 teams that were playing together that weekend. So we just played 100 points in a row, just no matter what. Because we're going to do that no matter what. Like, what does keeping score add to that?
Bragging rights.
What? Bragging rights, I guess. But if we're all just trying to hit the ball around.
You guys know you all walked off that field thinking we still won majority of the points.
It was just, like, I don't even know how it happened. I think we were just kind of messing around and then started to go hard, but never kept score. Or maybe we kept score and just forgot and then kept going forever.
So you think this should be the format for regionals and nationals?
I think we should not keep score, and then we should have someone off the side say who won. Just go.
I moved to a boxing format. It's just kind of like that. We were talking about this, the eye test. You play a game. That. It's not about scores. It's just kind of, this team looked like they did better. They had some cooler shots. Judges rate them with the winning score.
That's like it.
Picture.
So pay me $100 and you can win regionals.
We just solved all our problems.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind, Mike. You're gonna be Midwest, right?
I'll be Midwest.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. Dang.
What are the Mike? Do you know the dates for all the regionals off the top of your head?
Yes. September 9th, we have the Southeast in Atlanta or Peachtree, somewhere in Georgia. And also on the 9th, September 9th, we are in Santa Monica for the West. The next weekend after that, September 16th, we're in Chicago, I believe on Montrose or North Ave.
North Ave.
North Ave again for the Midwest Regionals. And then back September 23rd, we have East Regionals in Boston or Cambridge. So
Awesome.
I'll be at Southeast, Midwest, and East. Oh, no, not Southeast. Sorry, Logan. West.
I won't be at Southeast. Southeast by heart, but I'll be playing Midwest.
Oh, I think you maybe be going. That was gibberish.
I gotta ask Logan, why are you doing Midwest over Southeast?
One of my friends is having a bachelor party in the Southeast during the day, and so I couldn't make it that weekend. I would have liked to go to the South. That's where my heart belongs, but plus I'll already be in Chicago, so Midwest just makes sense on a lot of different levels this year.
There you go.
Shaun, you have regionals plans?
I do not. It is actually my girlfriend's birthday, the 9th, which is the West on the West Regionals. And last year, I missed her birthday for regionals, so I can't really do that again.
Yeah, you can. There's precedent.
So I won't be there, but I'll be tied to my phone that day because I'm very intrigued to see who wins West Regionals.
Yeah, West Regionals is going to be pretty crazy because, I mean, no team, like Strange has not lost to a West team. And then we have two guys point Loma, two guys just beat them twice in a row, but they're getting close, 3 games both times. And then we have Button Bulls coming out of nowhere. We'll see how they do.
Yeah, I'm rooting for them. We'll see.
Yeah. You going to be at Midwest Regionals though, Shaun?
I will not. I have to come back. But yeah, I'm not gonna make any regionals this year. That's not very fun. But
Dang.
I'll be here to talk to you two about it.
Perfect.
Of course. Okay. I think we should end here. Big serving discussion.
Yeah, I'll be curious to see where 2018 goes. There's a lot of different opinions out there, so the board has a lot to consider.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited to see where it goes, though. I think something. I don't think it's going to be the same next year as it is this year. I just don't know how it's going to be different.
That's the beauty of it.
I think
so true.
Serving's just going to keep getting better and better and better, and it's never going to stop. It's never going to stop. And we'll just have to accept it at some point.
Acceptance.
Just accept it. All right. Well, guys, thanks for listening. Thanks, Shaun and Logan, for coming on and talking about serving, which is really hard to talk about.
Yes, sir.
Because we have no idea what's going on.
That's what we're here for, though. Speculation.
Yeah. And everyone else, I'm going to be... you might be wondering why we didn't talk about some other issues from Chicago. The Observer little issue that happened in the quarterfinals. I'm going to be hopping on with Ezra Dantowitz soon, and we're going to talk about Observers in general and that case specifically and some other stuff. So look out for that soon. But with that, peace out, guys. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
See y'all later.